It's your girl Queen Genius. I'm back, and today I'm making meatloaf, cabbage, and homemade smashed potatoes. I haven't decided on the bread yet. I might go with garlic bread or cornbread. Have to let the mixer decide on that one. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so first I'm going to show you my cabbage, and I pre-prepped the cabbage and the potatoes already to try to speed things up. In my pot I have a whole head of cabbage, whatever size, depends on how much you like cabbage, the size of your family. I have a medium to large size head. I've chopped it up into slices, and then I quartered it. Also in the pan I have some sliced onions and leeks, and the little pink things you see floating are it's a pork product. You don't have to use meat in your cabbage, but I like to use it just as a flavoring. Right before the cabbage is done, I'm actually going to take it out. I won't be serving it inside the cabbage. I mean, you can eat it if you want, but I always usually just take it out. I just want it for flavoring. There it is. In this pan I have a little bit of Italian seasoning. Whatever brand you prefer is fine. I also have a little bit of sea salt and some sazon. And I know you're going to see this a lot in my cooking. I love it. I think my husband thinks I'm part Hispanic, but hey, I love it. It's a wonderful flavoring, and it does, as you can see, it gives it a lot of color, but I just love the flavor that it gives. I also added a little bit of paprika, and that's another reason for the color in it as well. What I've done was I've covered the cabbage all the way up to the top, and I'm just going to let this cook down and simmer about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how tender you want the cabbage to be. So I'm going to cover this up, and in my back pot here I have my potatoes that are roughly medium diced. There's also kosher salt in this water as well. And the little things you see floating are whole cloves of garlic. I've just smashed them lightly just to release the flavor. I don't want the garlic flavor to be too strong, but I want to use it in the liquid, so it's going to flavor the water, which is going to flavor the potatoes. That way it's going to be all through the potatoes and not just sitting on top, which usually happens when you add that afterwards. Okay? And then in this pot here, I have my carrots, onions, and garlic, and it's pre-cooked. This is going to go into my meatloaf, and I've already cooked it and let it cool, so I won't be adding hot vegetables to my cold meat. But this is going to be my vegetable mix for my actual meatloaf. Alright, we're going to go ahead and do the meatloaf now. In my bowl I have ground chuck. You can use ground beef, ground pork, ground veal, ground chicken even. It depends on whatever you like. You can do a mixture of ground chuck and ground beef. I usually do 80-20. You can do 60-40, 70-30. This one's an 80-20 blend, and that's fat to meat ratio. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire. I'm going to add about 6 or 7 teaspoons to this at first. I'm going to add a little bit of Italian seasoning. And this is all just eyeballing. I'm going to add a couple of shakes. And you can always pre-measure this. This would be roughly about 1.5 tablespoons full. I've been doing this so long that I know from the shakes about how much I'm adding to it. So if you feel more comfortable, you can go ahead and measure. I would say about 1.5 tablespoons. I'm going to add garlic powder, and again, you'll see me using this a lot too. I love garlic. Same thing with the garlic. I'm just going to shake it. With the garlic, you want to add about a tablespoonful. Again, it all depends on how much meat you have as well. And we want to add a little bit of paprika. You want to go a little bit light on the paprika, so you want to add about a teaspoon of the paprika. A little heavier on the pepper. You want to add about a tablespoon of pepper. And instead of the sazon, I'm going to add adobo. And again, I love this spice. I think my husband, like I said, thinks I'm a little, crazy. But trust me, it's wonderful. We're going to add about a tablespoon of this as well. And by the way, my husband is filming. He's a little quiet, so I don't think he wants to say that on camera. And also I have some basil in the grinder that I'm going to grind in here. This one I'll give about maybe 5 or 6 grinds around. So just to pack a little bit of flavor. And I introduced you all to this seasoning a little while ago, the Smokehouse Maple. And I love this flavor because normally I would put bacon in here, but I didn't have any today. So this right here is going to give it that bacony flavor. And again, a few shakes. Again, for those who love to pre-measure, you feel more comfortable pre-measuring, about a tablespoon of this as well. And if you love the flavor of it, if you tried it already, I would add just a touch more, maybe about a tablespoon and a half. We have that and the infamous ketchup. I want to add about maybe a tablespoon of ketchup. I only really use it for to help with the moisture. I really don't like it a whole lot in my meatloaf, but I know it does add a little bit. Instead of adding tomato paste, which can be a little bit heavy, this actually also adds a little bit of sweetness. This way I don't have to add any brown sugar or honey. So instead of the tomato paste, I opt in to add ketchup to it, which actually works pretty well. You don't taste it as much. Now what I'm going to do is, which I have to indulge a secret into my husband because he never knew this. I'm going to add a little bit of grated Parmesan Romano cheese. And this I'm going to actually add in my hand. As you can see, if you got little hands, I would just put it into the cup of your hand. This is maybe about 2 teaspoons. All together, I add about maybe 4 teaspoons. Like I said, if your hand's a little bit small, again, if you rather pre-measure, go ahead and do 2 teaspoons. Now, this is what I have here. And I'm going to add just a little bit of onion powder. Now, the onion powder, again, is one of those seasonings kind of like the paprika. You don't want to add too much because it's very strong. You don't want to overpower. Gonna kind of sprinkle that a little bit. Now, we have all of our dry ingredients in. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to squeeze past the camera a little bit. And I'm going to now add in my vegetables. These will be considered your wet ingredients. And as you can see, I have on my trusty gloves. I love using my hands. That's what they're for. But, you always want to be sanitary and clean, so I make sure I keep gloves on. But I love using my hands. I mean, you can use a spoon if you don't like the feel. I know a lot of people don't like the feel of the raw meat. It doesn't bother me, so I get my gloves. What we're going to do, we're going to add 1 egg to the mixture. We're going to get that going. And I have some breadcrumbs that I have. It's a roasted garlic and savory spice mixture. This I actually eyeball as well. I start off with about 1/4 cup. Again, if you're not comfortable with free pour, you can always measure it out by hand. Measure it out with a measuring cup. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to mix. I'm going to grab that egg off the side and kind of break it up a little bit. And then, now, this is the part that you want to be careful with. You do not want to over mix this. First of all, you want the meat to stay as cold as possible. The more you mix it, the warmer it gets by the touch of your hand, and it's going to start getting gummy, and you don't want that. So you kind of want to work it just a little bit. And while you're mixing it, you can see if it's how wet it's going to be, if it's going to be too dry. You want to make sure it holds up. This is not, you don't want it to sit like a hamburger, because a lot of times hamburgers fall apart when you make them homemade. You actually want this to stay together. So right now, this is about the consistency that it is. If you can see, when I push it together, it kind of holds up. This is where you can take a little bit off, get your skillet, get it hot, and actually cook this in the skillet. And this way it'll tell you if you have enough seasoning in it, and that way you can add more now, instead of trying to add more flavor later. So what I would do, if you're not used to making this, if this is your first time, take a little bit out, put it in the skillet, cook it up, and then taste it. That's the only way you'll know. But for me, because I've done this so many times, this actually looks perfect. What I am going to do is I'm going to take my clean hand, and I'm actually going to add a little bit more of the breadcrumbs. And this is actually going to be the last time that I'm going to handle this. Like I said, you don't want to over mix it or handle it too much. And voila, there you have it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my bacon dish prepared. I spray a little bit of oil in a pan, not a lot, because you're going to get a lot of grease from this cut of meat. Now if you're using ground chicken or turkey, you want to add more fat to the pan because it's not going to get off a lot of fat. But because of the type of mixture of meat that I use, I only want to add a little bit just to make sure it doesn't stick. But at this point, this is all the mixing that I'm going to do. Next step is to put it in the pan, and then once I get into the pan, I'm going to show you. I'm going to add a little bit more special ingredients onto the top, and then we're going to put it in the oven. Okay, everybody, so here's what it looks like in the pan. I've spread it out, and I've added a little bit more breadcrumbs on top, and I've sliced some thick cut bacon into small strips, and I placed them strategically on the meat. This is going to help add a little bit more flavor and a little bit more fat. If you're worried about the grease, a trick that I've learned, that you can add slices of bread underneath, and you want to get thick cut slices, not the little thin regular sandwich slice bread, because those will soak it up too much and then it'll get real gummy. Or you can add crackers underneath. That'll help alleviate some of the fat. But this is what it looks like, and I'm going to put it in the oven now and cover it. Put it in the oven at 375 for about 45 minutes to an hour. You just check it periodically to see the doneness of it, but usually 45 minutes is about how long it takes. But again, it also depends on what cut of meat you're using. If you're using ground chicken, of course, it's going to cook a little bit quicker. Ground turkey, the same. Ground pork, you probably want to use about the same amount of time as the ground beef mixture. But this is what it looks like. I'm going to put it in the oven now for about 45 minutes to an hour. See you when it's done. Well, here's what the meatloaf looks like after it's done. It did split a little bit, which means I possibly could have added a little bit more breadcrumbs to it, but trust me, it's still going to be awesome. And sorry about the jostulation of the camera. Kind of dropped a little bit of hot water on my foot. Not the perfect ideal situation, but this is the meatloaf. And our cabbage is nice and cooked. As you can tell, it's cooked down a lot. Like I said, about 45 minutes to an hour. And our potatoes have been smashed with a little bit of butter, salt, pepper, and a little garlic powder. But you can add your own seasonings, whatever you like, whatever your family likes. And next I'm going to show you what it looks like plated and all together. And here is the finished product. I ended up going with the cornbread and cabbage. You can't go wrong. I also wanted to let you know that with the cabbage, you can also add sliced carrots to it. It's really good that way as well. It adds a little sweetness to the cabbage. Or you can leave it savory like this. And I also, with the cabbage, I added a little bit of vinegar to it. I usually add like vinegar to my greens and my cabbage just for that tart flavor. Like I said, if you want it a little bit on the sweet side, you could add a little bit of cabbage to it. But here you have it, my baked meatloaf, homemade smashed potatoes, cabbage, and cornbread. And as always, thank you for watching. For all you gamers, Kid Genius, KIDDJEANYUS, and for all you makeup artists, Lady Semo, 1 LADYSEEMO, and the number 1. Peace.